Kobe give them one last gamer. Bryant on the move with the jumper. He got it! 58 points! And the Lakers lead!
Kobe!
Knicks down 3. Should the Bulls foul? No. Anthony for 3. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied! In the hands of Anthony. Anthony for 3. Puts it in! Knicks by 1 with 8.2 remaining! James catches, puts up a 3. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Deep from 3. I'm Devon Withers alongside, as always, my good friends Gary Sunnyberger and Isaiah Hansen. Fellas, we were supposed to record yesterday. Obviously, scheduling issues tend to come up. It happens. It's part of life, and it almost seems like fate that we ended up recording tonight instead, because just a few hours ago, LeBron James signed his extension. So it really wouldn't have felt right to record yesterday and then have the news drop today. But before we get into that, how are each of you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I would like to thank Isaiah for his compliment that he gave me in our little private chat. I did add the Kobe thing to the intro video. When I was making the video, I needed the length to fit within the song. And I don't know. It's just sometimes a miracle. What is the NBA where amazing happens? There you go. That's how I felt in the editing room. How you doing, Isaiah?
Pretty good. I think what you're looking for is an epiphany. That's what you have.
Oh my goodness. Like Homer Simpson in the Simpsons movie. I had an epiphany.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Listen, fellas, this is a stacked schedule that we have for tonight. On just like that, we're in prime time, 8:15 start time. Here we are for the newest episode. We're going to be talking about LeBron James, as I mentioned, signing that 2-year extension. The NBA is now leaking the schedule, and we got a full slate of Christmas Day games that we're going to be looking forward to. Which matchups are we most excited about? We're going to be wrapping it up by talking about the Kevin Durant drama. Still not on the move, which I don't find too surprising, but still we'll go through that. Gary put in a lot of work on his newest piece over on the athleteshub.org. And for our third installment of our NBA draft competition tonight, to wrap up the show, we're going to be only selecting second-round picks, building our top starting lineups of all time. So just like that, let's bounce into it. Gary, Isaiah, today, LeBron James, the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James sign a 2-year, $97.1 million extension. And that's going to end up costing the Lakers a pretty penny right there. He's going to be paid through his age 40 season. He will then become a free agent in 2024. And guess who is eligible for the NBA draft in 2024? None other than LeBron James Jr. So, Gary, tell us your thoughts sort of when the news dropped this afternoon with the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James coming to that 2-year agreement.
Well, about a couple of days ago, I think it was 5, we heard that LeBron and the Lakers were in contract extension talks. They had a meeting with the front office there, Jeannie Buss, who apparently, I think it's funny that she goes on a documentary and says Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time, and then signs LeBron James to a nearly $100 million 2-year extension. I just think that's hilarious. He does have a player option for that 2024 season. So if something were to come up and he does not want to play in LA anymore, he does have the option to snap it away like that. And just a little thing I saw online, his deal can increase to $111 million over 2 years if the cap inflation goes up. So, I mean, think about that. 40-year-old LeBron James making over $56 million a year. I mean, he's the second greatest basketball player of all time, at least, if you want to consider, of course, a lot of Michael Jordan fans would come at my front door knocking it down if I told everyone that LeBron James was the greatest basketball player of all time, but he is the second at least. So you got to think, when you can tie him up for money, even if he is a little bit older, he's LeBron James. You sign that deal in a heartbeat. And if he gets that $111 million extension, like we think he might with that inflation going up, that potentially could land him at over $540 million a year, or $540 million over his entire career earned in the NBA. Not even counting that $1 billion deal he took with Nike when he signed with them in his rookie season. And just to put this into perspective, his first year in Miami, what people might consider, other than the finals, his best year in the NBA, he only made $14 million a year. So he's going from, of course, taking a paycheck when he gets there. I just think it's crazy that we are talking about LeBron James making almost $60 million in his last season, possibly of his career. Just crazy, Devon. How you thinking the Lakers are going to pull this one off, bringing enough people around to make a championship with LeBron James basically taking 25% of your cap?
Yeah, and you make a lot of really good points. I feel like you hacked my computer and you're taking a lot of
Did
my
I?
notes because I had the exact number. So it's 532 million guaranteed, and as you mentioned, that number can go up as the cap room does rise in the 2023-2024 year, but still 532 million guaranteed at the bottom floor already makes him the highest earning player in NBA history. And so that part to me is a little bit crazy, but definitely well deserved. I agree. Definitely a top 3 player, in my opinion, of all time. You could probably throw him in the 1 spot. You could throw him in the 2, or if you're really an old head, you could throw Kareem and Michael Jordan. But we won't get into that.
That's a debate for another day.
That's a debate for another day.
That's when people throw rocks at my windows when we have that talk.
And you know what's crazy to me? So I'll throw this to Isaiah as well. But for me, the most interesting part is, according to Vegas Insider, the Lakers have the 4th best odds to win the NBA championship this year. The 4th best odds. Remember last year when the 3 of us were on this exact call and we were laughing because there was one pesky little article that was out there saying the Lakers were going to finish as the 9 seed or the 10 seed, and they ended up being right on the money. So tell me how there's critics on one side that are probably going to say the Lakers actually might be in a worse spot to win an NBA championship this year than they were last year, because last year I felt like the coaching staff was a little bit better. I actually was a big fan of Frank Vogel, and I was a fan of what they had working with their depth at the time. And now you're talking about, plus 1,000 odds. It sounds a little crazy, but really the only teams in front of them are the Warriors, the Celtics, and the Bucks. And then the Suns are very, very close to the Lakers, but just behind as well. So that part to me is fascinating. You have people on one side saying the Lakers have a chance to win it all this year, and you probably have people on the other side saying there's a chance the Lakers might not even make the playoffs this year. So LeBron James, coming off of a season where he averaged 30.3 points per game, which was the highest in his individual career since the 2005-2006 season. The weight has been on his shoulders, but Isaiah, what are sort of your thoughts about this whole entire LeBron James? Because I'm sort of bouncing all over the place, but this is definitely an exciting day for the Los Angeles Lakers.
I mean, you should be excited because this is going to be your best chance moving forward. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
but we got you. Keep going.
Okay, so yeah, the thing is, the Lakers at full health, I don't put them 4th, but you could put them as the 4th best odds if Anthony Davis is healthy. We still haven't had a chance to see all 3, LeBron, Westbrook, and Anthony Davis, really see if they could put it together. Okay? I don't know that they can, but maybe last year is a wake-up call for somebody like Russell Westbrook. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere. I know they tried everything they can to get rid of him. I think you're stuck with him. They made a lot of nice little moves, picking up like Juan Toscano-Anderson. They got some youth now, which I think is going to help when you have an older guy like LeBron James who doesn't have to go all out every single game. Now, this isn't the same kind of LeBron James that doesn't have to go all out as of before, because before you kind of knew you were going to make the playoffs anyway. So LeBron has to do a little bit more than he has had into in the past. But if Anthony Davis is healthy, and from all accounts, it seems like he's doing everything he can to stay healthy.
Yeah.
They are not my favorites. They are not top 5 for me. But this is your best chance. This is your best odds. You got a new voice as a head coach.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I would not be shocked if they are at least a 5th or 6th seed if they're healthy. That's,
Yeah.
It's a giant if right there. That's a big old capital I and a big old capital F. I'm sorry, Dev, but I really Anthony Data Davis is a funny nickname, but it has a lot of truth to it. Street clothes, as Charles Barkley likes to call him. I would really like to see a healthy Anthony Davis because he is, if healthy, there's that word again, if the most, if not the most, one of the most dominant defensive players in the NBA. And what was the Lakers' big issue last year? It was their defense. LeBron James, known to coast, quote unquote, through the regular season on that end of the floor, mainly because he has to put so much effort in on the offensive end and to get to the finals. We see guys like Harden and Jokic, specifically Harden most notably, kind of get gassed towards that second round of the playoffs. So you have to rely on your guys around you for, if you're LeBron James, to carry you through those regular seasons, the slog of the, it's February, 6 or 7 days before the All-Star break. And you got a couple of games in there that you need to win because, those games count up at the end of the year. When you're looking at the last couple of games of the season, all of a sudden that January's 23rd game where you rested LeBron and Anthony Davis and you lost 2 or 3 games in a row, they matter. And so if you're LeBron James, if you really want to win this title and you really think at 37 years old, and you need to put in all that effort you can during the regular season to get to a point where in the playoffs you have home court advantage, where the Lakers thrive. If you look at their record at home, they're great. It's when they go off and play in, San Antonio that they have issues. I don't know. I'm a little worried, but I don't think that's 4th best odds to win the title.
Yeah.
That might be much.
So here's the only part that worries me. And truthfully, as a Lakers fan, this is what worries me. This year and next year are the Lakers' last chance to win an NBA title, I feel like, for at least the next 5 to 7 seasons. 2 years from now, LeBron James will be an unrestricted free agent with his son entering the NBA draft. He said time and time again, he will sign with whatever team drafts his son. We might end up seeing a team take a player who doesn't deserve to be a first-round pick, be selected in the first round because of his name value. Don't tell me otherwise, Isaiah. This man's a projected second-round pick. He's a projected second-round pick. If his last name isn't James Jr., then he is nowhere to be seen on anybody's radar.
If his name isn't James Jr., then Skip Bayless might talk more about him.
2 years from now, LeBron James will be an unrestricted free agent. Anthony Davis also has a termination option to end his contract early with the Lakers and hit free agency in the same summer. If I'm the Los Angeles Lakers, I need to sign Anthony Davis to a long-term contract because he is the only star player that's going to be on that team by the time 2024 comes around. We all know Russell Westbrook, he'd be lucky to be on this team by the end of the season. They just haven't been able to sell him to the right team quite yet. There's been a handful of trade rumors, but no team is biting the bait on Russell Westbrook unless you're trading 1, possibly 2 first-round picks in the future, which the Lakers are very, very limited on their draft capital all the way up through the next 5 years because of that Anthony Davis trade in the first place. So 2 years from now, the worst-case scenario is you don't have LeBron anymore. You don't have Anthony Davis anymore. You don't have Russell Westbrook anymore. Your best player is going to probably be some guy you drafted in the first or second round in 2 years from now. So that's the part that worries me. But this signing tells me something very, very bold and something very clear. If you were getting ready to rebuild, you would not have handed out this extension to LeBron James. This tells me that the Los Angeles Lakers are going for win now. But if you're going win now, I need you, the Los Angeles Lakers, to make some sort of trade, go with some sort of edge, some sort of depth, some sort of sense of shooting the basketball from three-point range, or as Gary mentioned, playing defense at least average level in the NBA, because like we said, we just can't trust the health of Anthony Davis. We can't trust the defensive efficiency of Russell Westbrook, and we can't trust any longer the longevity of LeBron James. So I need some sort of sense of hope, but I'll put it all out there. The Los Angeles Lakers are going to be a top 5 seed in the Western Conference this season. A top 5 seed is my final prediction. It's going to be low end because you're still going to get the Denver Nuggets. We talked about this off camera. They're going to be coming back better than ever. You're still going to get the Phoenix Suns, a very, very good basketball team. Golden State's probably going to return to their, form from last season. So that's your top 3. And then you're talking about Memphis. You're talking about Dallas. You're talking about Utah. Well, Utah selling off Rudy Gobert, probably not. But Minnesota is going to be a very, very improved team as well. So Lakers have to find ways to win games even when they're resting their star players.
100%. Those rest days for the Lakers are more important than ever considering their age, but also from their record standpoint. They can't afford to lose those games anymore. They can't afford, you got to be like the 2014 Spurs. They'd rest Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili, and they'd still end up winning games. So those are more important than ever for these Lakers.
Absolutely. And so as we go into the next topic, which is talking about this upcoming season, so it's a nice little segue. The Los Angeles Lakers are one of the teams playing on Christmas Day. Here's the Christmas Day leak that the NBA provided to us. You're getting the Warriors and the Grizzlies, the Mavericks and the Lakers, the Nuggets and the Suns, the Knicks and the 76ers, and the Celtics and the Bucks. A lot of good matchups all the way through Christmas Day. It's hard to pick one matchup to be really excited about, but if you had to pick just one, Isaiah, we're going to start with you on this one. Which of these matchups stand out to you?
Well, last year, maybe 2 months removed from last year, I had said the Golden State Warriors were my favorite in the West. If Klay Thompson had returned, I wanted to see how much better the Warriors would have gotten when Klay Thompson came back. I am now copy and pasting what I said about the Warriors last year and applying it to the Denver Nuggets. I want to see just how good they will be with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. With those two back, you still have – is Aaron Gordon still there? Aaron Gordon's still a thing. So the Nuggets are going to be a problem next season, okay? The Warriors are still going to be in there. They're probably like my second. I just don't know if they're going to go back-to-back. But the Nuggets are a big thing. So the whole point of this, the Nuggets versus the Suns, because you have two teams that this is like a crossroads for them. Okay, like the Phoenix Suns, like if you're going to do something, you better do it this year with Chris Paul, because once he's gone, like I said before, I don't know if I trust Devin Booker to hand the keys to the franchise and expect a championship. Not in Phoenix, where you're not exactly able to pull a free agent willy-nilly. That's why, like, a team like the Lakers, you talked about, 2 years. But the Lakers, even though it doesn't carry as much weight as it once did, they're always able to get a big fish at some point. You can't say the same about the Phoenix Suns. So at that point in time, I want to see where the Suns are at and if I am correct about the Nuggets, because you'll kind of have a good idea if they can really function as well. Is Joker going to step back with having to share time with Jamal Murray? I don't think so. I think Jamal Murray is going to elevate, because this guy, this Joker guy, is not the same player he was teaming up with a year and a half ago. He was still great. But he's elevated to another level where later on he's going to be, you'll see. But there's going to be more on Joker later on. And then you got Bones. You have a team over there in Denver. So I'm calling it right now. Ready? The Denver Nuggets are going to win the NBA Finals next year.
Ooh. Put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Or a tattoo if you're a Celtics fan. You just get it tattooed right here. Just put Denver Nuggets 2023 NBA champions.
Yeah, Isaiah, you're riding the Denver Nuggets. It sounds like all the way to the NBA Finals, but this isn't something we really prepared either. And if you had to make a very bold prediction for Christmas Day, right here in August, Nuggets and the Suns, who's winning that game?
I got to go all in. I got to go with the Nuggets. I
Gotta
think
go
the
all
Nuggets
in.
are going
That's
to
what I
win.
assumed.
I wouldn't
Smart.
put it past the Suns to win. It depends. We're going to know better. But right now, if I had to pick based off their two teams, you got to go with the Nuggets. All in.
That's fair. And as Isaiah mentioned, Nikola Jokic, a name that's going to probably be coming up later in this episode as we are going to be drafting our all-time starting lineups, but only taking players selected in the second round of their NBA draft class. So it's going to be interesting. Make sure you're tuned in for that. Gary, so with that matchup on hold, what's another matchup you're looking at this upcoming season on Christmas Day that stands out to you more than any other?
Of course, we have, all of the stuff that's going on in the NBA, but what are we really looking at? We are looking at the old guys retiring, coming out, maybe having a last showing, and then the new guys coming in. Those guys who could be the face of the NBA here in the future. So the game that I am looking at to really solidify those 2 points I'm making will be the Los Angeles Lakers going against the Dallas Mavericks. Last year, the Mavericks won that series 2-1. They played 3. Now, and the main reason I picked it is because in all 3 of those games, you had at least one of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Luka Doncic out for injury. In the 109 to 104 game that LeBron and Luka played in, the Mavericks did win. However, Anthony Davis was not in that game. The game that the Lakers won was in overtime, and Luka didn't play. And then in the third game, which the Mavericks won, LeBron didn't play. And I'm really excited to see these guys actually playing basketball on the same court so that we can see how these two teams pretty much kind of, jumping into those 2 different generations of NBA talents, the LeBron James and then the Luka Doncic coming in. I'm excited to see them play in a game that the NBA actually makes them play. Because at the same time, we do see a lot of these primetime games where you look and you go, oh, I didn't realize until about 10 minutes before tip-off LeBron wasn't going to play in this one. Everybody in the arena is upset because they thought they were going to come see LeBron. No, this is Christmas Day. This is the day that the NBA sets on their calendar. This is the day that the NFL and the MLB isn't playing that. But you know what I mean, that the NFL isn't allowed to, or I guess they've changed that recently, but for the longest time, it was the NBA's day, it was Christmas Day. So I'm excited to see a game where LeBron and Luka Doncic actually have to play for this game. Of course, like I said, I think as a year ago at this time, Luka Doncic has a chance to become a future MVP in this league. That could happen next year. So the chances of us getting to see possibly top 3, top 2, whatever you want to say, greatest NBA players of all time, going against a guy who has the potential to be a top 20, 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 top.
Can you guys hear me or no? Can you hear me? Give me 1 sec.
Hang on, I can't hear you. 1 second. Oh, shit.
Can people hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear
I
me?
can't, Sort of. Can you guys hear me?
I can't hear Gary.
I can't hear Gary either.
He was sitting a freestyle on me for like a minute. It was like top one, top one, top one.
Yeah,
I was like, oh shoot.
that's how it was for
When's
me as well.
I'm like, when's the next album coming out?
Yeah. But I assume we're still up live and running. So we are
I just switched phones. I stole
Okay.
somebody's phone.
Perfect. As we sort of get settled back in here, I know Gary is hosting this episode as well. I just want to make sure this is still running on social media. But
Are we good? Can you hear me?
We're good.
Very good.
I don't know what happened there.
That's okay.
The mic is down. If it's not as clear as before, I apologize. But
No,
we
you're
are here.
totally fine. I hear you loud and clear. Things happen. Technical issues occur.
Am I okay? On my end, everything okay?
Oh my gosh, you sound way better.
Yes.
I switched to I stole a customer's phone. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So as we move forward with this episode, Gary, let's bounce it right back to you. The last thing we talked about is you discussing NBA players playing on Christmas Day, and then you sort of started to cut out on us a little bit. Isaiah described it as sort of a freestyle because, it was sort of like a remix version of your own voice right there, but sort of start where you left off.
Okay. So my album does drop next week. That is besides the point. My main point was we are going to be able to see LeBron James and Luka Doncic for basically the first time at full strength, fully healthy, going against each other in a game that they actually have to play in because the NBA is going to make them. It is Christmas Day. And what better than to have the NBA's past, the NBA's present in Anthony Davis, and then the NBA's future in Luka Doncic on Christmas Day for us all to see. We don't have the times for these games yet, but I would be hard-pressed to believe that this isn't the game they put in that prime time slot at the end of the day so that we can see, after you unwrap your presents, after you say goodbye to your grandma and your grandpa or whatever you're doing on Christmas Day, that you will be able to watch NBA basketball sitting behind with your chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Yeah, and it's a good point too. And LeBron James actually surprisingly efficient on Christmas Day games, believe it or not. He is 10-5 as a player in the NBA when he's playing on Christmas Day, and he averages over 25 points a game in those contests. So it'll be interesting to see if the Los Angeles Lakers will be able to hold their own against a competitive Western Conference team such as the Dallas Mavericks.
Listen, real quick. I'm pretty pro LeBron these days. But listen, I remember a lot of those because I was pro Kobe. Kobe was my favorite. That was those 3-on-1 matchups against an old Kobe Bryant. I remember those days.
I'm just saying.
Beating down the Lakers 10. Anyway, I'm pro LeBron, second best player of all time. But damn it, that number is a little bit, little bit, messed with.
I'm just here throwing out the numbers. But fellas, I'm gonna go with a different angle on this. What if I told you there's two teams playing on Christmas Day that are actually make up the best rivalry in the NBA today? What if I told you the greatest rivalry in the NBA was no longer the Lakers and the Celtics? What if I told you it wasn't the Bucks and the Celtics? What if I told you that the greatest rivalry in the NBA today and probably for years to come is between the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies? Let me take you back in time. This is a story that goes back to 2019. Run back the tape. This is where I would imagine myself clipping this if I had the technological skills to do so. 2019, Andre Iguodala gets traded to the Memphis Grizzlies. He refuses to play as part of the Memphis Grizzlies. Remember this back in 2019? He says he doesn't want to even play a mentor role to these players. Dylan Brooks is asked about this in a press conference in the locker room shortly after the news breaks that Iguodala is just not going to be part of the team. He's going to wait for a trade to occur. And Dylan Brooks basically says something along the lines of, he doesn't want to be here. I can't wait for a trade to happen so we can show him what a mistake he made and what kind of team we can really be. That was 2019 when the Golden State Warriors weren't even involved. Andre Iguodala later signed with, I believe it wasn't it the Miami Heat, Gary?
It was the Miami Heat.
And then he went back to the Golden State Warriors.
I say we as if I'm part of the organization. The Miami Heat traded Justice Winslow and a second-round pick to the
Yes.
Memphis Grizzlies for Andre Iguodala.
Yes. And so Andre Iguodala then goes to the Miami Heat. He then, in the following offseason, signs a deal to return to the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors are on the decline. They've missed the playoffs once already. They're in the play-in tournament, and it's up to the new kids on the block in the Memphis Grizzlies to knock them out of the play-in tournament. They do so. The Memphis Grizzlies go ahead and knock them out in the 2021 play-in tournament, which marks the second consecutive season that the Golden State Warriors were forced to miss the NBA playoffs. 1 year later, now all the history is there. Golden State has revenge on their minds. It is a battle. It is physical. It is gritty. It is everything we love about the NBA. Draymond Green and Dylan Brooks each received flagrant 2 fouls in the first 2 games of their series in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs. So they're both ejected for that game. Brooks then comes back for a different game. Or no, Brooks was ejected because he actually injured Gary Payton II with an elbow injury that caused him to miss the rest of the series. And just like that, the Golden State Warriors, they were too experienced. They were too good at the time, too skilled. Although Ja Morant tied the franchise record with 47 points in Game 3, I believe it was, Memphis just wasn't at the place where they were ready to compete for a title. So it was back and forth. Golden State prevails. Now we get to the fun part because the damage is already done on the court, but look at what happens off the court. These 2 teams had 2 superstars leading their franchises. Ja Morant, during that NBA playoffs this past season, had 149.3 million views on social media during the playoffs alone. The next highest player in the NBA playoffs, it wasn't LeBron James because our Lakers weren't even there. It wasn't the conference. It was Steph Curry, but it was at 88 million social media views. So there's a 60 to 70 million view gap between these 2 players. They're garnering attention. So you're throwing all these numbers. They have the 2 highest jersey sales during the NBA playoffs, and then you throw in that rivalry following the Golden State Warriors championship win. Klay Thompson, what are your immediate thoughts? And he calls Jaren Jackson Jr. a bum because of a tweet from last March about strength and numbers. That's where your mind was going to when you were drinking all of that champagne in the locker room play. What are you talking about? So you're telling me going into this season, I get the best NBA rivalry. This is like receiving that brand new PlayStation 5 that wasn't even sold out. It was sold out all over the country. This is the greatest matchup on Christmas Day. It is everything we could ever want and more, and I couldn't be more excited about this.
Go off, Devon. Go off.
Yeah. Actually,
did
both
your
of you guys.
research. My goodness, my friend. Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. This is the new rivalry. This is MJ's Bulls and the Detroit Pistons. Maybe not in terms of, but like from a physicality standpoint, this is the best we're getting, folks. This is it right here. This is that.
If you ask Ja Morant, it is the Bull.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. This is Ja Morant doing his best Michael Jordan impression.
Yeah.
Trying to get his team over that hump. Maybe he gets that second guy, and Jaren Jackson Jr. being Scottie Pippen. I'm not saying anybody else is anybody else, but look, you are 100% correct. This is probably the most exciting matchup when it comes to the new era of the most popular player in the NBA, Steph Curry versus Ja Morant. Those YouTube videos, those Twitter clicks, all of those used to come to Steph's way. Now it's leaning more towards Ja. I love what you did there with the view standpoint. It's not
crazy.
even close to see how much of a superstar Ja Morant is becoming, not just on the court, but on social media as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Dev, I got to put you on the spot now. Who do you have coming out of, and Gary for that matter too?
Yeah,
Gary's as a wrestling fan, right? I'm thinking of like the older vet puts over the young buck, raises their hand at the end. Is that what's going to happen? Are the Mavericks going to come out, and is LeBron James going to hold Luka's hand at the end of that game?
This is going to be when I'm not really that much of a wrestling fan. I'll be quite honest with you. I know some of the names and everything like that, but this is towards the end of the careers when you had the new changing of the guard, that attitude era into that next being. LeBron James is part of that era, getting passed it over to Luka Doncic. This is Steph Curry. Well, I mean, they just won the chip, so you never know unless something catastrophic happens. Steph Curry, is this the changing of the point guard instead of is this the changing of the point guard into John Morant? I'm personally going to be taking the Mavericks on Christmas Day. Luka Doncic shows up to big games. Not that LeBron James isn't, and whether or not people want to say, and I'm looking at you, Camera, whether or not you want to actually believe that LeBron James is one of the most clutch players in NBA history, but Luka Doncic is that new guy. John Morant is that new guy, and I would not be surprised. Devin, who are you taking? Memphis Grizzlies?
Man, if we're
Golden
going
State Warriors.
Yeah, if we're going WWE references like Isaiah was talking about, I don't know.
Don't come over to Carlito.
Memphis has that. I don't know much about wrestling nowadays, but Memphis might be that Logan Paul kind of character. I don't know. That's the only character I know.
I'll take it.
I'm gonna go ahead. When we're talking about December, we really have to come into which teams are going to be healthy. Jaren Jackson Jr. is not going to be present, I don't believe, given the fact that he had to have surgery and he's out for 6 months, I believe. So he's not showing up for Memphis. Can John Morant get it done with at least 40 points on the board? I don't know. Is Golden State even going to be healthy? It's hard to tell at this point. A lot of those guys are starting to age, but they got some young depth down there too. I'm going to go with Golden State to defend on Christmas Day, but I don't think it's going to be, happy holidays for all. I could see at least one ejection, if not two. I could see a fight, a little scuffle breaking out. And these are two teams genuinely that do not like each other. Think about that. The greatest moment of your life, you win an NBA championship, you're better than everyone else, you're drunk off of champagne, and you're talking about a tweet from March. Oh, Klay Thompson, what are you doing? You came out as a loser in that situation, my friend.
Klay Thompson did the same thing against LeBron James in 2016.
He hurt his feelings.
Where he hurt his feelings. LeBron giggled, laughed, and then came back and won 3 straight. So
yeah.
Maybe you got your champagne, you got your roses, Klay, but maybe you should pull it back a little bit. You never know when something's going to come out of the woodwork.
All right, let's cruise right into this last topic right before the NBA draft competition, which hopefully our technical issues stand at a minimum. Fingers crossed. But Gary, you touched on Kevin Durant using his own words against him, talking about the grass isn't always greener. Kevin Durant on June 30th, I believe it was, requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. Still no traction whatsoever. I think it probably has to do a lot with the fact that Rudy Gobert went for so much in return value. But Gary, sort of talk to us about the piece. For those watching at home, the piece can be seen over at theathleteshub.org. Gary did a great job, as always, on it. Took some direct quotes from Kevin Durant himself. Talk to us about that piece and where you sort of stand on the situation right now.
The whole thing with Kevin Durant, really, honestly, personally, I relate to a lot. I have been known, my family members and personally known people, my friends, know me to be somebody who doesn't really stay in one place all that much. I grew up in one spot. I moved to another city. I changed jobs a lot. You do get discomfort when you stay in one spot, especially if you're someone who's used to things going your way, things having some change. But the one thing I've always learned when it comes to either when it comes to your personal life, basketball, or just in general, the grass really isn't always greener on the other side. Whether you know it or not, you might look over that fence and see that, you're in Oklahoma City. You have a great championship style team around you. You have Russell Westbrook. You have Serge Ibaka. And you choke the 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals. I remember watching those games, watching Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook basically give the ball to each other, ISO, dribble, shoot a pull-up, miss, and then Klay Thompson and Steph Curry go on the other end and dominate. So what does Kevin Durant do that next offseason? He goes and joins a 73-win team to go basically create the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? Biggest upset when it comes to, or biggest the best team you want to say in NBA history, if you're not counting the 96 Bulls.
Like a super team.
Yeah, biggest super team in NBA history. Thank you. And so he goes and does that. They win 2 championships, and Kevin Durant still isn't happy. I mean, imagine going and winning 2 NBA championships and still coming out thinking that it could be better somewhere else. Maybe he wanted his own team. Maybe he was tired of people thinking that it was Steph Curry's team. I mean, he doesn't admit to it. He was quoted as saying after joining the Brooklyn Nets in 2019, after leaving possibly the greatest dynasty that could have been in NBA history, I felt like it was time for a change. I wanted to play for a new team, and simply put, I just did it. I didn't really think about what I was leaving behind or what we accomplished. I put that on a shelf already. When it was time to make a decision on my future, I just thought solely about me. And you could argue that this was a business decision. Kevin Durant had a lot of money when it comes to his agency in Brooklyn. He made a lot of investments in that area. And it is something that, all in all, I don't think any of us were too upset with. Maybe Isaiah, because he's a Knicks fan. I wanted him to go there instead. But Kevin Durant did leave to the Brooklyn Nets and almost immediately had changes in mind. On March 7th, they fired Kenny Atkinson, basically, in my opinion, because he decided that Jared Allen was a better player than DeAndre Jordan. Who would have thought? That's not true, by the way. It's Jared Allen is way better than DeAndre Jordan right now, and that's a move that was questionable at the time and questionable now. Then in September 3rd, 2020, they hired Steve Nash. Later that December, Durant played his first game. In January, the Nets traded for James Harden, a move that Kevin Durant wanted. Then the Nets lose to the Bucks in round 2 of Game 7, where Kevin Durant shoots a three, wasn't a three, a foot on the line, and then they wound up losing that series in 7. That same summer, Durant signs a 4-year deal. The Nets trade Harden in February. The Nets get swept by the Celtics last season, and not even a year after he signs a 4-year contract extension, and on my birthday, nonetheless, June 30th, Kevin Durant requests a trade out of Brooklyn. And I just have to say, I'd love you to go read my piece. I talk a little bit about just in terms of where he could go this year, why he would want to leave. But I really do think that Kevin Durant needs to give the same ultimatum he gave to owner Joe Tsai when it came to firing Steve Marks and Steve Nash. Is the grass going to be greener on the other side wherever you go? Not because you might not win the championship, because obviously you're Kevin Durant. Wherever you go, you're going to become a contender. In places that you even did win a championship, you were a contender. And you were possibly the greatest super team of all time, but you still weren't happy. So I know Kevin Durant is probably, unless he's scouring the internet for his name every time it comes up on Twitter and looking at my tweets, I don't think he's reading these. But if he does, I would love you to just take into account your own quote that you said. The grass is not always greener on the other side. You learn to appreciate these people. And Kevin, I think you need to learn to appreciate the fact that the Brooklyn Nets organization bent over backwards for you in every single capacity that they could to get you the team that you wanted. And now the moment it doesn't work out, you want to jump ship. I don't know how you guys look at this, Devon, Isaiah, but, whether we see Kevin Durant leave in this offseason, I mean, I think the Rudy Gobert trade, like Devon said, is going to be a little bit of an issue getting him out of there because of how much that trade garnered for the Utah Jazz. You're not going to get if you get a better trade for Rudy Gobert than you did for Kevin Durant, there's some serious problems in your organization. But at the same time, do we see Durant leave? I personally don't think so, because I don't think that the Nets are going to give him or get enough from another team to basically justify giving away what could be the best player in the NBA. I don't, whether you believe that or not, Kevin Durant is a top 15 player of all time, and you can't just trade him away for nothing. But I do think that Kevin Durant needs to seriously look and think, why are you going to request a trade not even a year after you signed a 4-year extension? It's just perplexing. And I really wish I want to see Durant stay in Brooklyn. I really do. And I hope they get enough draft picks for him back if they do, so that they can bolster their team so they don't just waste these 3 years for no reason. Kevin Durant is going to garner a lot of attention in the trade market and already has. And if you don't get those picks, if you don't get a good player back for him, you wasted 4 years of your franchise. And the first year, Kevin Durant didn't even play. It's crazy to me. What do you guys think? Is Kevin Durant leaving?
I don't think so, because like it's just like you said, like Danny Ainge literally broke the NBA trade market with that deal, because now it like sets the standard and it's hard to move. But you talk about, by the way, great rundown, just everything right there. The great piece, great rundown. Gary is phenomenal at what he does as well. So now, but one thing I'm gonna say, I think Dev could appreciate this. I was watching an NF interview years ago. NF, if you don't know who that is, I don't know what to say to you. Okay, NF, of course, rapper. He said one of the toughest moments in his life was when he went triple platinum, and he felt empty. Like he worked all of his life to make it in the music business. He goes triple platinum, and it felt empty. So I think that's where Kevin Durant was. He's like, damn, I got everything I wanted in Golden State, but I feel empty. So he's like searching for something to fill that void. And maybe it's just not Brooklyn. Maybe it's just because, man, he picked the wrong team to go to. You're just not going to get loved in New York as much as you would have on the Knicks. And that's not me being a toxic Knicks fan. That's just the truth. He's never going to own New York. The city is not Kevin Durant's. It's more RJ Barrett than it is Durant. And that's not even, again, that's just a fact.
Okay.
It is. Maybe not nationally, but in New York, oh yeah, it's RJ Barrett. You go to the city, you ask anybody, well, maybe not the city because there's people literally all over the place. You go to Queens, you go to Brooklyn, go right in where he plays, and there's going to be people saying, "Oh, RJ Barrett's the man." He's not better than Durant, but that's my man. And that's what you're going to hear. So I think he needs. I think that's what he feels. He doesn't feel the love, the appreciation. He needs to go somewhere that needs him, and New York doesn't need him.
A great place that could have been was Oklahoma City the first time he was there.
Man,
imagine
that would be it.
He goes, he stays, and he is the man. He is Dirk Nowitzki. He is Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett went to the Celtics. Forget that. He is Dwayne Wade. He is Dirk Nowitzki. He is Steph Curry. He is Kobe Bryant. For those franchises, those mean something to each of these players.
Yeah.
And the fact that he left because he thought that joining a 73-win team, I
think he regrets it. I really do.
I think he does regret it.
Yeah, even championships and all. I just, it probably just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. It feels like it'll be something. If he could go back to OKC and God forbid win a championship, oh my, like that's a legacy right there that's cemented as like top 5 in my opinion. If that were
not happening, but if he does,
it's not
it was already thrown out, and the last thing that I saw from OKC was absolutely not. Even with all that draft capital, they said absolutely not bring back Durant.
Well, they're gonna. If they did, they'd have to put in Shea. They'd have to put in Poku. No, but then Chet. They'd have to throw their entire team to get him.
Yeah, here's sort of where I stay. Here's where I might disagree a little bit. Is I don't think that Durant reached the top of where he wanted to be and then said, "Oh, like I worked, like Isaiah said, work all this for all of this, and then you still feel empty." I think he got to the top, felt something for a brief moment, and then logged on to Twitter and saw a bunch of trolls tell him that you had to join a 73-win team to go ahead and win a championship. And I think that Kevin Durant is one of the most lethal, cold-blooded killers the NBA has ever seen. The history of the league, the top 15 players Gary had mentioned. Some might even put him closer to that top 12, top 10. He's also one of the most fragile players on social media across any sport, anywhere, anytime, any place. If he is on his phone, he is a detriment to himself. I don't think Kevin Durant is going to be in any other uniform other than the Brooklyn Nets this season. That being said, I don't think Kevin Durant is going to be on the court night one. I think we're going to see a holdout of sorts. That's my prediction. I think he's going to hold out. I think he's got plenty of money. I think he he's more worried about his pride than he is anything else. And if he's not willing to work alongside Steve Nash, who is still out there, and he's not willing to work alongside the front office, I've seen plenty of reports about Kyrie Irving doesn't like this setup that they have going on, absolutely hates Steve Nash. Kevin Durant sort of feels the same way. It's not really working. Every time Kevin Durant has made a move on behalf of the Brooklyn Nets, it hasn't worked out for better or worse. It just hasn't. The James Harden trade didn't work out because none of the three of them were willing to either get a vaccine or stay healthy or play together or whatever it was at the time. And so I think we're going to end up seeing a holdout. There's no substance as of today from the latest report that the Boston Celtics are interested in trading for Kevin Durant. They were one of the favorites to land him at the time. And I want to add this as a side note too. How ironic that Kevin Durant requested a trade and the teams he put on his short list were the Golden State Warriors, the Phoenix Suns, the Miami Heat. Oh, please. You're talking about joining teams that are already going to be contenders next year. The reason you went to Brooklyn was to start your own thing, and now you want to go right back to jumping on somebody else's coattails. The team that won the NBA championship, the team that set the franchise record in regular season wins. The Miami Heat have been a respected franchise in the Eastern Conference for a number of years, dating back to that LeBron James, and even before that, the Dwayne Wade, Shaq era. So you're telling me that all of a sudden Kevin Durant wants to go from being the guy that rides everybody's coattails to not wanting to do it. And now I think, like we said, I think he regrets it. And I think now he's saying, if I get the chance to join another contender, it worked out well for me last time. Let's try to run it again, get another 2 to 3 rings before I retire.
I would love to see him in a Heat jersey, but it ain't happening. I would love to see Michael Jordan in a Heat jersey. We retired it, for Christ's sake. It's sad to me that, Kevin Durant might just go down in history as a bandwagon jumper.
Yeah.
Listen,
And
real quick.
Go for it. No, go for it.
I just saw something pop up of me because I was looking to see what the opening night game would be. So to see Kevin Durant said, I was going to be quite disappointed. But I was just talking about how the Knicks run New York. Listen, the Knicks have 16 nationally televised appearances next year.
Oh, okay.
The Brooklyn Nets have 13.
That's not like you gasp, Devon, but that's like a real thing.
They just know Isaiah's going to tune in for all 16 of those games.
He's watching all 16 of those games.
Yeah.
What's the Lakers versus the Clippers? Come on. Let's
No, you have a great point in that Kawhi Leonard joined the Clippers. They might win a championship. Kendrick Perkins is calling them the favorite to win the title next year. And it's going to be a Lakers town until Los Angeles has water run over it and no one lives there anymore.
Here's one point I wanted to make too before we jump into this NBA draft, which I'm super excited for. I know these guys are too. The last point that I had on my Kevin Durant drama notes is I think that this whole entire situation, if Kevin Durant somehow gets traded at any point in the next year, let's say, I think it sends a huge message to the NBA that contracts no longer have value in the league. I remember back in the good old days when the commissioner was out here vetoing Chris Paul going to the LA Lakers, which, would have broken the league temporarily, but I've seen a lot worse happen since then. I've seen highway robbery for Rudy Gobert. Someone should be arrested for that trade. So now Kevin Durant signed this 4-year extension, and the last point I want to make about the Heat too that really irked me was Kevin Durant wants to go to the Miami Heat, but he only wants to go to the Miami Heat if Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo are all still in Miami. He only wants to go there on a condition. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, since when are you a member of this front office? Because as far as I'm concerned, every time you've made a move, like I said, a move on behalf of the Brooklyn Nets, it has failed miserably up in flames. So I just don't understand where the players get the sense of they're allowed to not only pick their destinations on where they're traded to, but now you're allowed to dictate what the return package is. I don't know. I don't get it.
It is perplexing that these guys come in, demand their coach be hired, want the GM to do everything that they do, and then the moment it doesn't work, they blame both of them as if it wasn't their idea. LeBron James. Sorry. What was that going on?
Hey, LeBron won a title. It's a bubble title, but he won the title. He won the
It's
title.
true. He did.
So,
He also won it in
all is
2016. So
Yes.
yeah.
All is forgiven.
But then he's also
Are you
created a
guys ready?
mess.
Are you guys ready to draft?
Let's
I'm ready
draft.
to
Do we have the music ready to go?
All right, here we go. I got it
The
right
music is, as we're getting the music started up, I'll run through it one more time for those watching for the first time. This is our third installment of the NBA draft competition. We've already done 2 segments. The first one being selecting only players drafted number 1 overall, and people felt like Isaiah took that one from us. And the second one came along. International players. You're only allowed to select international players. The fans, I appeased the fans. I took the new school players. The fans loved it. I felt good with that draft.
Dude, Devon, I had so many people in the multiple Facebook groups tell me, how did Devon end up with all of those guys? He robbed everyone. He swept us. It was a Shaq and Kobe in 01 kind of finals. You were 15 and 16 and 1. They went crazy.
I'm not gonna lie. Even I took Dev's team at the end of it. I was like, you know what?
Yeah. Towards the end, I realized pretty quickly. I was like, oh, I lost. Let me just take who I want.
It's another opportunity here. So if we're keeping track, then it could be 1-1-0. But it's Gary's time to shine right here, with this round being only selecting second-round picks. So guys that we're taking in the second round of the NBA draft. Obviously, we're going to build our starting lineups: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. And then your 6th and final pick gets to be a wild card. Any position, however you feel like it benefits your team and how you see it. Players need to be somewhat reasonable. We're not going to select 5 centers or 5 point guards and just claim that we're playing with a big lineup or a small lineup. Somewhat realistic. We determined the draft order before, just a random draw. Isaiah gets the number 1 pick, back in the number 1 seat. And then it's Gary with the number 2, myself with the number 3, snake style. So I will then get the 4th overall pick, and then we'll trade back and forth from that point on. So, gentlemen, unless there's any questions, Isaiah, there's a big blunder a few weeks ago with you taking a player that wasn't technically international. So I don't want to see any first-round picks being selected with this 1st overall pick.
I mean, I might have some arguable ones later on, but we'll get to that when the time comes along.
If there ain't a 2 next to that R on their Draft Express page on their screen,
you might, some might argue differently. But anyway, so here we go. You'll see. You'll see. Okay. So look, I do have an ace in my back pocket, right? But I'm not going to use my ace just yet. I'm going to use the Joker card, of course. I'm going with Nikola Joker. That's not really a surprise. I don't want to spend too much time on that. That is obvious. I mean, what is there to say? In the end, I feel like the Joker will be the greatest second-round pick of all time. And I had to do a double tick. I'm like, wait, Joker was taken in the second round. I had to really confirm that was the case. And I mean, I think the rest of the league definitely regrets that decision. So of course I'm going to go with the Joker to start off.
Some would argue already the greatest second round pick in NBA draft history, depending on how you see it. But Gary, we knew that move was coming. We talked about this off camera before the show started. So this leaves you with plenty of ample opportunity to take anybody on the board aside from the Joker. What's your thought process in the first round?
I mean, I gotta take the guy who's available, who's the second player on my board. He was selected in last, I guess it was 2 weeks ago's draft at this point. Isaiah had him on his team. I will be taking Manu Ginobili with my
I thought you meant the NBA draft. I was like, wait, who?
No. I'm taking Anthony. No, what's his name? Anyway, I'm going to be taking Manu Ginobili, greatest sixth man of all time. One of my favorite players to watch growing up. It's a shame that we don't consider his 5 NBA titles or is it 4? I don't actually have it right in front of me, but he was the 57th pick of the 1999 NBA draft, and the fact that he is probably the biggest steal in NBA history when it comes to the draft. You know, it has to be said, 4-time champion, 2-time All-Star. won the Sixth Man of the Year, and I guarantee you if he was actually playing the starting shooting guard role on those San Antonio Spurs teams, we'd be looking at him as like a 9 or 10-time All-Star. He was a little underappreciated when he was playing because of that dog he had next to him in Tim Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the ball spot, let's be honest.
That is not what I thought you were going to pick. Usually how these drafts work is people tend to steal my guy 1 or 2 picks before I can take him. But this leaves me, I know who one of them is going to be. So I'm going to submit this guy in right now. I'm going to take the greatest rebounder in NBA history, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Dennis Rodman as my first pick. That's what I thought Gary was thinking about taking. Obviously, I think in this draft, there's a good amount of depth, and Gary gets a great situation, unless Isaiah wanted to push Joker to power forward, or maybe I want to push Dennis Rodman to power forward. I still think there's ample opportunity to do so. Otherwise, the center position is now up to Gary for the rest of the draft. My second pick, this is where I think we can agree there's a little bit of a drop-off after these 3 guys. I'm going to go with a guy that we berated just a few weeks ago, someone we said wasn't worthy of the max extension.
Ooh, okay.
If you give me Dennis Rodman and Draymond Green down low, nobody is scoring on us. So I'm going to take Draymond Green as my second pick right there. Has the NBA titles to go with it. Say what you want about him getting the help from Steph and Clay, but Draymond Green, sneaky as one of the best defenders, I feel like, in the modern NBA era.
Devon's team, all defense, no shooting. Yeah. We like to see it.
Plenty of picks to go. Back to you.
All right. So you got Draymond at your small forward and Dennis at your power forward?
So right now, the way that I have it, I have Draymond in my power forward and then Dennis Rodman in my center right now.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good. So it is my pick.
Yeah.
With my second selection, I will be taking a former defensive player of the year.
Okay.
One of the greatest Spanish players of all time. I will be taking Marc Gasol. Once traded for his own brother, Pau Gasol, where a lot of Grizzlies fans say that trade was fair at the time. It was not. We did not know Marc Gasol was going to be as good as he was. The Lakers stole Pau Gasol from the Memphis Grizzlies, but they ended up getting possibly one of the best center. I mean, he's the second center on my list behind Jokic. I will be taking Marc Gasol. I'm going for an international team, I guess. I didn't even realize it. Here we are.
That's a good pick, but also not one I expected. Like I said, the center position was up for grabs, so you probably could have waited a couple rounds. But once again, Marc Gasol was probably my best player on the board at the time of your pick. So I'm not mad at it at all. If you're going for the best overall team, that's a good strategy right there.
All right. So it is Isaiah gets 2 in a row here.
Isaiah gets 2.
This went exactly how I wanted it to so far. I kind of wanted Draymond though, but we could move forward. Now listen, I'm gonna make a bit of a reach because this guy has been on my Donkey of the Day list for like a week now, maybe 2 weeks. Mr. No Chill Podcast himself, Mr. Gilbert Arenas is gonna be who I take as my point guard. And real quick, chill on the disrespect of the old heads, the players of the 60s and 70s do matter. Because if they played in today's era, they would have adjusted just fine. And if you played, a lot of you guys, especially you, Al Harrington, talking about you're going to bust Willis Reed's ass. In what era? Are you going to go to the past? Are you going to go to the past and play under hard nose, under hardwood, and adjust to that? Or are you going to bring Willis Reed to this era with the technology and the medical care and the salaries that we have today and expect to be him? No era would you be him. Anyway, moving forward. So I'm going with Gilbert Arenas. I had to say that. I've been dying to say that all week. That really infuriated me, by the way. Okay.
I can tell you're hot.
Yeah. You can't just say any average player is going to be a GOAT of a different era just because they played in the 60s or the 70s. We're not doing that.
You heard it here first. Al Harrington, average.
And I'm going to follow that with, after what he said, he went from really good to average. Okay, so now moving forward, when we talk about players of yesterday, I might surprise some of you guys with this pick. Possibly. I'm going to put him. potentially at my shooting guard position, maybe my small forward. We're talking about a guy that played in the era that didn't matter, according to Gilbert Arenas, but he's going to be teaming with him today. He's probably going to be the leader of this team. Okay. We're talking about a guy that played in the 70s. His career stretched through the 80s into the early 90s. We're going with Mr. Alex English. Yes,
God.
we're going with Alex English. A guy that has averaged 28 points a game at a time when players weren't doing that really. You know, you're talking about 28. I mean, the guy, what do I got to say, Mr.? Maybe I got to say a lot because people don't understand. He averaged 21 points per game in his career, just a pure scorer, a guy that could just shoot the lights out. I could put him in my small forward or my shooting guard position. I'm going with Mr. English himself, Sir English. Welcome to the team.
Oh man, I really wanted Alex English. I don't know if nobody but my roommate who I used to have, one of my best friends, Nick, knows how I play basketball. But it is
that's who you're
basically
talking about.
modeled after Alex English, a mid-range master, one of the greatest scorers on that Denver Nuggets team. Now they didn't play any defense, but that's besides the point. And if you know more about my style of basketball, that makes even more sense. Great pick, Isaiah. Oh,
That's
man.
what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think I got a surprise here. I think he
Okay.
should be on your guys' board. But he's also one of the only players on here. And as I'm looking at this list, he is the only player on this list to be the second best player on a title team. I am going to go at small forward. I will be selecting Chris Middleton.
Yeah.
The disrespect this man gets is if he isn't the guy that they give the ball to at the end of the game for the Milwaukee Bucks, as if he isn't one of the best scorers in the NBA. Just because he plays with Giannis, he doesn't get a lot of respect. But remember, when this Bucks team won the NBA title, he was the second leading scorer on that team. He was the second best player on that team, and he's the only player on this list to have been the second best player on a title team. I will be selecting Chris Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad, fellas. Not bad. I'm not going to lie. I'm still a little shook. I knew I wasn't going to get Gilbert Arenas, but I really wanted Gilbert Arenas. One of the greatest what-if players, I feel like, in NBA history, right along with, like a Tracy McGrady, a Penny Hardaway, like those guys from the era. A lot of great picks. Chris Middleton was also on my list. Alex English, you guys are battling over Alex English. He probably was.
Oh, no, come on. Alex English is fantastic. Go look at those stats.
Don't even do
Go
that.
look at those stats.
Listen, everyone knows from that first draft how much I loved drafting the older players, the guys from, way back in the day, but the fans don't like it. Our fan base
He's in enough NBA 2K games. He's going to get some.
I don't know. But here's what my thinking is. I need shooting, right? And it'd be a shame if I just didn't take one of the, say, 3 or 4 greatest 3-point shooters of all time. I got to add Kyle Korver.
Okay.
Kyle Korver joins the team, gives us a little bit of shooting, gives us some options. We give a grin over to Gary, who just said we don't have any shooting on our team, so we took care of it put a Band-Aid on it. I'm going to take I think the point guard position is really, really weak, and I'm looking at everybody else. I'm looking at Gary especially, who doesn't have that point guard yet. Isaiah could move Gilbert Arenas, I guess. He was, a point guard and shooting guard, so you could technically move him to either or. So he could sneak out in front of me and take a point guard. So I'm going to go with a guy that once represented my Lakers just for a few weeks, but I still love him to death because when he was with the Boston Celtics, he was averaging almost 30 points a game. Isaiah Thomas joins my team. I'm going to take Isaiah Thomas at the point guard position. Severely undersized, but that's not going to matter. He has the ability to get to the bucket. He's one of the most underappreciated players. Very, very heartwarming story with the Celtics as well, where he was tragically moved on. So I'm gonna go with that, and then I just get my small forward position taken care of with this last pick, and it's on to the wild card.
All right, I like that pick. Not gonna lie, that's a good one. Devon, you complimented your incredible defensive front court with absolutely none in the backcourt. We love to see
There's
it.
just no winning with you guys.
There's no winning with me. No, of course, people are watching. They're going to vote on this or whatever. I want to, show my case. I show that I've done my
You
homework?
worry about Marc Gasol being able to hang out with Draymond Green and Dennis Rodman down low. The only chance he has is getting to the line after getting a bloody nose.
This is the best small ball team of all time. I'll say that.
Crafty. I have a 7-footer. Everybody on your team is under 6'8".
We're gritty.
All right.
Gritty.
Okay. Nonetheless, I need a guy who's going to pass the ball to both of my two main scorers in Manu and Chris Middleton. I will be selecting who is now currently probably one of the better coaches in the NBA, won a championship with the Celtics in 2008. I will be selecting Doc Rivers with my pick for my point guard.
Doc.
Yep, Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
One of the better passers in the NBA, averaged 10 assists a game in 1986, playing for those Atlanta Hawks. One of the coolest styles of basketball, could just back down anybody. Any smaller guy that he had on him, he was backing him down, putting him in the post. And as a point guard, I always thought that was cool. And Devon, you did give me a little stat that I didn't get, that I got to write down here, that he got his nickname because he wore a Dr. J jersey during a summer camp. Doc Rivers was my selection.
It's true. But we don't talk about Doc Rivers because when he played those 3 years with the New York Knicks, couldn't even average more than 8 points a game. So he's going to pass the ball. He just won't shoot the ball, I guess.
I don't need him to pass the ball. I don't need him to shoot the ball. I just need him to pass it to my open guys. I just need him to make his free throws. I need him to pass. He shot 46% from the 2-point range. We're in the 80s. That's a really good percentage. We're going over here with
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. All right, Isaiah, you're going to round out this round for us and start off on the next round.
Okay, so look, I'm going to go for a reach. I think this is a reach. I think this is a reach, yeah. So listen, I'm going to be moving Mr. Joker to my power forward spot, okay? I'm getting him away from Gasol, and he could go have Draymond Green chase him around if he wants. Okay, so look, I'm going with a guy who is going to get rebounds, who's gritty. Mr. AD himself. That's right, Mr. AD. Antonio Davis, okay? We're going to Antonio Davis at the center position. He's going to get me some rebounds. I just think it's important that he gets some love here. Yeah, Antonio Davis. Yeah, look it up.
No, I looked it up. He didn't make my list.
He didn't make your list.
No.
Okay, he's one of those guys that's going to get some votes, I believe.
Antonio
also.
Davis, he played 2 years. He played 1 year. Oh, wait, no, he didn't. I had to look
With a career high of 14 points a game.
I'm looking at the rebound, okay? 10 rebounds a game. He averaged a double-double in a couple of years. One of those gritty players, I think, in my opinion. I think, and he's tall. I need a tall guy, okay, on my team to go against Mr. Gasol. Okay, I'm going with Antonio Davis. Don't judge me. I know it's a reach, but it's just a style of play. I need somebody that's gonna be gritty because I got Mr. Joker, English. They could dance on their feet a little bit. I need myself a Gilbert and a AD combo. Okay, yeah, that's what we're doing.
I was literally like AD. I'm like, is he talking about Anthony? No.
I was
like, did Adrian Peterson get drafted in the NBA and I didn't know about it?
See, that's part of the reason why I wanted to pick him, also just to see if there was a reaction there. So, and then going with the next team, with the next guy right here. Okay, we're going with another guy of the past. Okay, we're going with a 3-time NBA champion. We're going with one of the better Celtics of his time. We're going with Mr. Dennis Johnson. So we're going to put Gilbert Arenas at my shooting guard, and we're going to take Dennis Johnson as my point guard. And that's going to round out my team, my starting 5 anyway. So
Dennis Johnson
rounds out his starting lineup.
Mr. DJ.
Man, that's. I don't know if your fans are going to come to your side on this one, Isaiah.
They're going to come to my side. We're talking about at their best, okay? And I also got a point to pick older players just because of that whole Gilbert Arenas thing. But yeah, I'm going with Mr. Dennis Johnson, DJ.
I like it. So Isaiah's lineup starts out going into the wild card round of Gilbert Arenas, Dennis Johnson, Alex English, Nikola Jokic, and Antonio Davis. So not a bad starting five. I like it. There's a lot of bright spots in there. I love some of those picks. Gary, it's time to make your last pick of the starting five. You're missing a power forward.
I am missing a power forward. You are correct. And I will be selecting a 3-time NBA champion. This man was playing with Michael Jordan in the 90s. I will be selecting at my power forward position Tony Kukoc. Famously got the ball at the last minute of the game instead of Scottie Pippen, just to let you know how killer he was. Tony Kukoc will be my power forward.
Yep, he was on my list. He was on my short list of wild card players. So that's a good pick. Oh, man. So I need either a shooting guard or a small forward. I could put Kyle Korver at one of those positions, and I have to fill the other one is what it sounds like. I'm going to take the guy that I thought Gary was going to take a while ago when he was talking about mid-range shooting, because I think he's the greatest six man of all time in the NBA, and I think he is also a great mid-range shooter. I'm taking Lou Williams.
Okay.
Lou Williams is going to be my shooting guard, which then means Kyle Korver shifts down to small forward. Starting lineup is Isaiah Thomas, Lou Williams, Kyle Korver, Draymond Green, Dennis Rodman as the starting five. And I get the first pick, I should say, of the wild card round. And this is where it gets tough, because I could take the guy that I thought Isaiah was going to take for his fifth guy when it was coming to rebounds. I could take my best player available. Or I could just take the defensive stud that's sitting right there. There's three guys that I think are going to go back to back to back right here. But I have all this. Can you ever have too much defense? Can you really have too much defense?
The Pistons didn't think so.
The Pistons didn't think so. I'm going to go no, I can't do it. He can't shoot the ball. I need somebody. I need somebody that's going to. Okay.
You're gonna go for the height.
I'm going to
You got
take.
this.
I know. It's just all right. You know what? Just for the content, because that's what I'm here for, right? I'm not actually signing these guys. I'm gonna go defense. I'm gonna take a stud. I'm gonna take one of the best trash talkers that the NBA has ever seen from the modern era, at least. I'm going Patrick Beverly is my wild card. I need a game changer. So that means now Isaiah Thomas, Lou Williams, and Kyle Korver, they're going to have to get a little mean because they're playing alongside Draymond Green, Dennis Rodman, and Patrick Beverly now as my
That's hilarious. I know this is all fake, but I want to see an actual team where Isaiah Thomas, Lou Williams, and Kyle Korver have to talk to those three guys when it comes to those defensive assignments. Those conversations are amazing.
They're gonna be heated.
Yep. All right, Gary, your last pick of this wild card round right here.
So if you look at my team, you notice I've got Doc Rivers, great passer. Manu Ginobili, great passer. Chris Middleton, 5 assists a game. Tony Kukoc, a good passer. Marc Gasol, another great passer for the center position. So to round it out, for my sixth man, I need a guy who is going to catch those passes. I need a guy who's going to jump out of the gym to catch those passes. And I'm going to need a guy who is, in all respect, one of the most well-liked players in the NBA. So well-liked that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving demanded that this man was on his team. I will be selecting DeAndre Jordan with my last pick.
That was the rebounding guy I was talking about. I thought Isaiah was going to take him when he was talking about rebounding.
No, I literally had DeAndre Jordan written in at Isaiah's center position when he started talking, and I was like, all right, that'll be easy. Yeah. And then when he did, I was like,
he chose
I get him?
Antonio Davis.
You're damn right. Listen, I think my last memory of DeAndre Jordan probably threw me off. That's probably why. But I like that pick. Actually, I was going to pick DeAndre Jordan with my next pick, actually. But I was definitely going to take Lou. So you guys took my two guys, okay, my two wild cards.
Okay.
So it kind of sends me into a bit of a loop here. But I'm tempted. I'm tempted to do something here. I'm tempted to take a guy who probably doesn't get that much play. All he did was score. That's all he did. Okay. Man, let me see here. He played for the Bucks. Actually, the two guys I'm thinking about both played for the Bucks at one point or another. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up another guard. Okay. First of all, shout out to guys like Cliff Robinson, Carlos Boozer. Okay. Maurice Cheek, shout out to you guys. I'm not gonna shout out Jalen Brunson yet. He did not earn it. Damn it, I'm gonna do it. Okay. I'm going with Michael Redd. A dude that can just score. Okay. I got just a team of scorers. I got some defense, and I got somebody that's gonna come off the bench and just score and do literally nothing else. Okay. Nothing else. We're talking about a guy that averaged 26 a game in one season, 25 a game in one season. So yeah, we're going with Mr. Michael Redd.
I like that pick. Michael Redd was, when you played 2K back in the day, Michael Redd was a killer. Of course, in real life too. Injuries gave him a little bit of a problem there towards the end of that Bucks tenure. But no, I like the pick. Good job, Isaiah.
Listen, This was another good segment, and as Isaiah mentioned, there was a few names that were missing. The only 4 guys were on my list that didn't get drafted. Steve Kerr was one of the guards. Jeff Hornacek.
Jeff Hornacek, yeah.
Jeff Hornacek. Cliff Robinson, as Isaiah had mentioned, and then Paul Millsap was my last name. That was still out there as well.
Also, Rashard Lewis. Don't forget about my man averaging 20 in Seattle. 2-time All-Star.
Malcolm Brogdon. That's actually who I was wrestling with a little bit. I was considering taking Brogdon. Norman Powell, another guy. Goran Dragic. I'm actually surprised.
Steven Jackson.
Yes. Oh, yes. See, I thought Dev would have taken Dragic at some point. That's just what I thought.
I honestly, when you said Celtics legend, I thought you were going to go with Danny Ainge. I really did.
I said it just because he kind of anchored the top of our segments here. Like
fair. Yeah, no. If I get Danny Ainge as a GM and a player,
true.
might have changed. I got Doc Rivers. I got my on-court coach. If I would have selected Danny Ainge, I might have been able to load up my front office.
You could have a player coach and
my players.
You could have a player coach in Doc Rivers and a player GM in Danny Ainge. Yeah.
Yo, that'd have been something.
But yeah, listen, fellas, this was another great segment. We'll throw it up on social media. Let the people decide which lineup and starting 5 plus the wild card they prefer, and then we'll get back together to the drawing board, figure out what our next segments are going to be, what our next draft competition is, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to conclude this episode and move on to the next one.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Take it easy, guys.
Peace out.